All right, so a lot of good looking games this year, and we're going to close it out with best games to play this year. Real quick though, just curious if you guys have a preference. What was your favorite platform to play on this year? So, and that doesn't necessarily mean the one you spent the most time on, but what was the one that like, yeah, when I could have my choice, this is the one I would go to. So for me, obviously the PC, that's where I had the most fun playing. I really prefer it. It's the most powerful of my options that are available now that I upgraded it this past summer. But then after that, it's a combination of Switch and Steam Deck. I really love a good handheld game while I'm sitting on the couch or laying in bed. And then as far as consoles go, it's PS5. Like, sorry, Xbox. I don't think I played any games on the Xbox this year. Maybe I did. I don't think so. But the PS5.
You played Hellblade, right? We all love that.
Yeah. I played it on PC the little that I played was on PC.
That's funny.
And the Hellblade love tonight. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't know why I'm taking shots at Hellblade. I have no big opinions about that game. Yeah.
Kyle's ex-girlfriend made Hellblade, and
yeah, that's what it is. Jilted ex-lover. Yeah.
No, but PS5 used in fits and starts. But when I played it, it was great because I played Rebirth on there. What I played a Stellar Blade, I played on there. Of course, Astrobot, I played on there. So, and I played a lot of Star Wars Outlaws on the PS5. So it was a really fun console when I sat on the couch with a controller looking at a big screen. But for the most part, I was all PC and handheld gaming this year. Dan, what about you? What were your platforms of choice?
It was definitely PS5. I mean, literally, if I just base it off of the two major games that I spent 100+ hours on, which was Rebirth and Metaphor.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely that. But yeah, I mean, this was definitely a more quiet year for the Switch.
Yeah.
Definitely a more quiet year, but hopefully any day, looking at my watch here, any day now, Switch 2 announcement, like Nintendo, what are you doing? Like, I don't know what you're doing. I like how they just
recently, they're like, everything you've heard about the Switch is not real right now. And I'm like, shut up.
Yes, it is.
Like, come on, it's all real.
They just confirmed it's very real.
Yeah,
dude, literally, like companies at shows, like having CES mock models, like
people saw it behind closed doors at CES. Like, there's no keeping this a lid on it anymore.
Yeah.
What are they doing? I don't understand.
I don't know. This is just, they're so old school and weird.
I don't know. And we know it's going to look just like the Switch, but be improved in a whole bunch of different ways.
They're going to have a really stylistic 2 on it that they spent millions of dollars like trying to figure out what the best looking 2 is.
You know what else they're trying to do? They're probably trying to cast all the fun, good-looking college students who will be playing on their roof, playing Mario Kart during.
I actually auditioned for that role, so they're like, you're too old. And I'm like,
good luck.
All right,
fair enough.
Yeah, it's rude.
Yeah, it was a quiet year for Switch.
Yeah, I was going for Smiling Guy on Roof 3.
Sure. The third one specifically. Yeah.
And I think my motion was like I had a nunchuck in my hand. I was like.
Then you broke the TV and they're like, get out.
Get out of here,
just
you almost
for like
40-year-old weirdo.
Dad.
Like, that's specific.
Audition for dad who hates games but finally sits down to play with his kids because of the Switch 2.
Yeah, what a feel-good story. I like that. Yeah.
Listen, I'm still gonna throw out there Super Switch. If they don't call it Super Switch, miss opportunity.
It's Switch 2, 1,000%. It's gonna be Switch 2.
Yeah.
Super Switch sounds so cool.
I agree. If I'm wrong in a Super Switch, I'll be very excited. Kyle, what was your platform of choice or platforms of choice?
PS5 for me as well. I play everything on there. That's where a lot of my old games are. So whenever we all went down our like old game rabbit hole this year, and a lot of my old games are on PlayStation. So
there you go. Yeah,
that's where they reside.
And it's the best. I think it's the best controller. I like the PlayStation.
I like it too. I think there was a world where I used to like the 360 control, like that 360 style. That Xbox. They've kept on going with that style since 360. That lateral control. But like, I don't know. I don't feel like I feel like I'm with you on this one. I think I'm more comfortable on Sony now. I think it's just the haptic feedback stuff helps. So.
Yeah, I just like the way it feels. Even the PS4 controller I liked, but I didn't have a strong feeling that it was my favorite. The PS5
4 and 3 kind of felt light and toy-like to me.
Yeah. These feel like legit. Like, hey, there's some heavy duty stuff happening here. Yeah. And it also helps that they always charm me with little sound effects that come out of there. Like with games like Astrobot, especially, I'm like, that's cute. I do
like that, but I will say it's the very first thing I turn off too. I'm like, okay, I've heard you enough.
That's totally fair.
But I like it. I do like
that's it. That's totally fair.
I do like it.
If you're using headphones, then you don't notice where it's coming from. You just hear it. But
that's true.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, let's wrap things up. I know this episode's going long, so let's dive right into our final category for today: and really our final category before best overall game next week when we do that. And this is going to be for best gameplay. And this actually is even harder than visuals to compare, obviously, because gameplay is even more varied, in my opinion, than visual styles, where it could be, are we talking about movement? Yep. What about combat? Yeah, that too. What about like exploring?
Combat?
Yeah, that too. What about the amount of control you have over your characters, RPG elements? Yep, all that stuff. Whatever you want to factor in to how the game is played, it can be included there. So like if you played, like for me, if I wanted to really make a fight for the new college football game, this might be the time to do it. I'm not going to, but that because of the gameplay, right? I love the gameplay of the college football game. So yeah, I know it covers a whole bunch of different areas, but we're gonna dive right in and start picking the ones that we want to have considered for best gameplay of the year. So I'm gonna get things started. I'm gonna throw Astrobot over there for my first pick. Kyle, what are you gonna go with?
I am going to go gameplay. Ooh.
Ooh.
Metaphor. Yeah, metaphor. We'll bring that over for
Metaphor.
Sure.
All right, Dan, what about you?
Black Myth Wukong.
Nice.
It's going to be a lot of similar choices.
It is. All right, so I'm going to go down here. I'm going to throw Unicorn Overlord over there. Kyle?
I think Dragon Age: The Veiled Guard's got a great combat system. I think bring that over.
There you go. Hey, maybe it sticks out more this time.
Dan, what do you want to throw in there?
Yeah, Rebirth. I'm not gonna like.
That was your second pick.
Bush.
Officially, I should have stole it and chose it and be like, see, I am the bigger Final Fantasy fan.
All right, I'm gonna say Indiana Jones. I love the gameplay there, and this should say a lot that I am currently still stuck at the same spot in the game, waiting for them to update it, and I still friggin' love this game.
I thought you didn't finish. You didn't finish it. I thought you.
I was playing Red Dead Redemption.
I thought. Oh, you did say you were gonna dial it back, and then Red Dead happened. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my save file, it was going to be about 5, maybe 6 hours of, and I had collected a ton of stuff. I was like, do I really want to erase all of that? Maybe, I don't know. So I'm waiting. Okay. Kyle, what do you want to
I feel very, very, very strongly about Helldivers 2.
Helldivers 2. I mean, that's why people liked it, right? It's because it's fun to play.
Yeah, I mean, it is all gameplay. Yeah.
All right, Dan, what do you want to bring over?
Stellar Bay.
It's your girl.
Bay.
I'm going to bring over Echoes of Wisdom.
Yes.
Where this game really shines is with all the little things that you summon. Kyle, what do you want to bring over?
Suicide Squad. I'm gonna do that joke every single time. Go ahead and go up.
And I'll delete it every time. And then,
delete it. Get it out of here.
Then I'll undo it because it messes up my list. You want to like the dragon? I assume.
I'll save that one. I actually think Grand Blue Fantasy Relink has one of the better action combat systems.
Right.
Year.
You guys have talked about that.
So incredible.
Yeah. All right, Dan. What do you want to bring over?
Let's say Dragon's Dogma 2. I love the climbing enemies mechanic, and more games need stuff like that because it's so cool.
I feel strongly about that for a lot of other reasons as well. So we'll get into it, I guess.
That's a good one. All right. I'm gonna bring over. I was just looking at one and I lost it when I scrolled back up. Let me see. So Flintlock Siege of Dawn is pretty fun. It's a pretty decent Souls-like, but it's not worth bringing over for this. I'm gonna bring over Core Keeper. Core Keeper has excellent survival and building mechanics. Core Keeper's great. Kyle, what do you want to bring over?
Gameplay.
I love that you put Palatro on there.
I know, yeah. Trying to make me mad.
Listen, I know you guys hate on it. The gameplay's really great in that game.
I know. It wouldn't be as electric if the gameplay, right. You know what I mean? Like, talk about an all gameplay game.
It's just funny using the word gameplay for some reason to me when you're talking about a card game. Like, I don't know why.
Oh, I actually put gameplay. Let's fix that. You guys got
gameplay. No, let's no.
You know
what?
Dyslexic ass was never
best gameplay.
I'm actually fine with gameplay. I'm actually fine with that.
This changes to all GOMs we want to consider.
GOMs we want to consider.
What'd you say, Kyle, to bring
over like a dragon now? I don't know why I waited so long for that.
gotta make its entrance, just like the characters from Like a Dragon.
Absolutely, yeah. Do you want to play an Animal Crossing game this year that's not Animal Crossing? Boy, have I got the suggestion for you. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, go ahead, Dan. What do you want to bring over?
Let's see. Scroll down.
And if I missed any that you want to bring over, I can keep going on the left side here. But
yeah, I don't know. I think I'm tapped out. I don't think anything else is sticking out to me. To be honest.
Okay. All right, I'm going to put UFO 50 over just because the gameplay is insanely varied with all the different games they have in there. What do you think about Plucky Squire, Dan? Is that worth highlighting for gameplay, or is it more about the visuals there?
It is more about the visuals. I will say. Wait, so it was just you and me that played, right, Tim? Kyle, you didn't play through?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about that game in general, but I haven't played the game, so I can't speak on the gameplay.
It does have a lot of variety.
I was gonna say, like, the boss fights, or there's like segments where you get to and like suddenly the gameplay is completely different.
Yeah.
Like there's one segment that's like an RPG, basically, like a little sort of like light RPG, and then there's one that's like a side scrolling, like kind of back and forth, like shooter, like twin stick shooter type of like situation, which is super rad. But like none of it's like, oh my god, like this is like amazing gameplay. Like I that's not what I would say. It was just like cool that there's all this variety in there. But
yeah, none of it's done so well.
Kind of reflect this as well.
Yes, I think so. None of the gameplay is actually done in a super sharp, incredible way. It's just cool how much variety there is, and then the visuals.
Yeah.
So
it kind of lived in the, like, I know Astrobot came out a little later, but Astrobot came out as kind of a similar cutie type of thing with immaculate gameplay. It's hard to, you know.
Oh, did we add that, by the way?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to move over Prince of Persia. I think it's got one of the best combat systems of the year. It gets overlooked for that. Let's see.
I know we're not making statements right now, but I know any year that a Gears of War game would come out, they would immediately get nominated, and one did come out, and it's freaking Space Marines 2 is so like the gameplay is so good, but we'll get to it.
It also ripped off Gears of War, but whatever.
We're all just living in Kill Switch's shadow when it comes to cover-based shooters, you know. Shout out to
I do think the Nine Souls gameplay is super smooth and really good. But like the combat, the way you parry and dodge and all that stuff is really good. How
do you feel about mini shoot? Because I feel really good about the gameplay.
That's on my top 10, so I was gonna move it over towards the end.
Do it over. Just do it.
Mini shoot is exactly what it sounds like. You are a mini spaceship and you're shooting, but it feels perfect.
Oh yeah, it feels better than a lot of shooter games.
I'm not a big twin stick shooter guy. I play some, but like this game. My goodness!
Like what if Geometry War was what if Geometry War was an RPG? You know,
what if it's what if it's a Zelda RPG where you explore and uncover secrets, but you're also twin stick shooting? Like, what?
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I like that.
Shout out to Lisfunga, the Time Shift Warrior. I only played like the opening 45 minutes, so I can't fight for it. But I've mentioned it before. The time element of playing alongside versions of you. You run through, kill all enemies that you can, then you reset. That version of you goes, and you do a second version of you, and you over time unlock a bunch of versions of you running out to fight enemies, and you got to clear the stage in a certain time frame to get to the next area. And so like versions of you have to fight together. There's some enemies, for example, that are like twins that are connected across the distance, and you have to kill them at the same time or they'll revive the other one. So one version of you has to go kill one, and you have to time it where the next version of you kills the other one at the exact same time. Like it's all these cool little gameplay elements that they've included. But I didn't get super far in it. I kind of just did what's equivalent to probably a tutorial, honestly, for that game. And Kill Knight, also very fun roguelike game, really cool, fast action. I call that one out too as some fun gameplay.
Probably the Beast is a good call out. I don't know if I'd bring it over, but like, boy, that game is a lot of fun. And it's very just like, hey man, here's the playground, play. You know.
Speaking of wild, crazy games, do you want to talk about Mullet Magic's gameplay?
I really like the gameplay in this game.
It's good.
I really do. Yeah, I think that like for a Hades like or roguelike, you know, like, but I'd say Hades because there are like you get to the end of a room or a level, and then you get pick. Like a random picking of thing. Like it's, you know, I know that's not a Hades only thing, but I always think of Hades first when it comes to stuff like that. I think it captures that pretty perfectly, and I think the loop feels good, and there is a sense of progression because if you get up a certain amount of floors, you can always restart from that section of the floor, you know. So I just feel like the game kind of gives back a little more than even like Hades, where it's kind of like you died, start from the beginning, you know. Like there's at least like you can at least start from here, you know.
You know, Redacted is a lot the same way. I actually do think it's a very cool game. It was free on Epic Games during their winter holiday, so if anyone happened to see that and grab it, but it is a isometric, it's actually a lot like Hades, except it's a sci-fi setting and you have more guns and things like that. So the setting's totally different, but it is a lot like Hades. It's pretty fun. It's just not amazing. Like it didn't hook me and make me want to keep playing, but it is pretty fun. Redacted is pretty good one. Angerfoot is funny. It's what it sounds like. You kick everything.
That is fun.
Another Crab's Treasure is a cute attempt at like a kid-friendly Souls-like, but I actually found the gameplay to be a little frustrating by the time I got to like the second boss. So
I tip my hat to Dragon Ball Sparking again. Like the gameplay in that is so good. It's never felt better. And I know we're not talking about visuals, but the visual presentation of the mechanics is more what I'm talking about here. It's a cool game. Really something, yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't bring it over. Just worth a shout out.
Curious what you guys think, just because I think most of us played it more than we expected, even though it's the same thing they always make. But Call of Duty Black Ops 6 was so fun to play. But I don't know if it's because they did this one so much differently and better, or if I just haven't played Call of Duty in a while and it's a good one. I don't know. I don't know if it's actually that good or if I just finally came back.
I feel like the mechanics are always feels sharp in these games, you know. So it's like you know, it would be like, you know, bringing Madden is the best feeling, you know, football game out there. It's like, well, no shit, they've had 20 years to perfect it.
Also the only
or like F1, bringing F1 over because
like maybe or motor like Forza Motorsport or Gran Turismo, where you're like, oh, the gameplay is so good. And this was like, well, yeah, they've had some time to really get into the nitty gritty of it.
I'm bringing Balatro over because
God damn you, I quit.
It is a really.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
It is a really good, stupid little card game, but there's a reason why everyone loves it. One guy, probably, I think he's in Canada or something. One anonymous dude figured out this really addicting gameplay loop using basic poker hands, and it's made him a lot of money, and hopefully gives him the ability to do a cool new project after this. So
good for him.
Yeah, good for him. I don't think it's top 10 material, but it's certainly worth acknowledging in our
as much as I never wanted to see that game win anything, I always root for projects like this. You know, what I mean by that is I don't want it to win Game of the Year at Game Awards. I don't.
It's Jeff Keighley's fault that you have negative feelings about it.
No, not at all. Because like I've seen plenty of games journalist outlets like crown out their Game of the Year, and I'm like, that's great. You know, I think that's awesome, and I think it deserves it. And I think that anytime a guy who doesn't even want to be recognized for anything, which I think is another interesting caveat to all this.
That's true.
Just a selfless, I want to make a cool game. Yeah, people are going to corporatize it to hell, you know, and stuff like that. But like, I'm just going to make it, and whatever happens, happens, you know. The last time something like this happened was Minecraft, you know, like, and look how that turned out. We may not all be big fans, but that's a cultural event, you know. That's a cultural
good point.
thing.
I'm going to put Banishers in the same realm as Flintlock, where they're good but not perfect because it's not a huge team. But I do want to give it a slight leg up, and it's at least honorable mention, in my opinion, because the gameplay is not just about the combat. If it were just about combat, I'd say it's fine. Yes, you have so many dialogue choices. You can decide who to help, who not to help. You can circle back to areas you went to before. Like the gameplay gives you a lot of really cool things to explore and fight. And and I actually do think the combat is like a good 7 out of 10 if I had just ranked the combat, which to me is way more than serviceable for a AA game.
Well, like great choices with okay combat makes a good pack. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like it's
yeah, totally agree. All right, anything else that we should put in our like Eiyuden Chronicle, for example? I love the combat. I love the story. We talked about story with this one already, but I will say, and I don't think this changes as I've been playing the game, some of the dungeon layouts and some of that stuff, some of the world you explore, it feels like they just opened it up with a lot of empty space where there's really only like 2 or 3 interesting things to do in a dungeon or on a map. And not that they needed to fill it with a bunch of junk, but I don't know, something about that element of the gameplay, the backtracking and those kind of things. Maybe that changes, Dan, over time. Maybe you get some better fast travel and stuff over time. I don't know. But I do feel like that part of the old school vibe of the game isn't something I needed. I didn't need to have to go on foot to backtrack anytime I wanted to go back and do something. But anyway, that's just certain elements of the gameplay I don't love, even though I still love that game overall.
Well, also with that too, like I don't know if this is the same for you guys, but when I'm thinking gameplay, my mind just automatically goes to like combat.
Mostly.
Or like if you're playing a game that's like a lot of walking, it's like, well, like, so the movement is does the movement feel good, things like that. So
yeah, it's definitely a little more multi versatile for me. I tend to not lock into any one thing for a definition when it comes to like gameplay. Like it feels like it's all gameplay. I think even like camera is like it's the way that the game controls, every facet of it, whether that's just like going through menus or everything like that. But like that's I think ultimately at the top of that list though, if it's a list of things, combat and like the main focus of the game is definitely
the platforming,
exactly.
Yeah, the actions that you're
doing.
It is
a tiered, like if I have a list, it is tiered, and there are more important things, and the things that you're talking about are at the top of that list for sure.
So like you can have a turn-based game that has really compelling gameplay. I give you Octopath Traveler 1 and 2 as good examples of that. Yeah. Really compelling combat, even though it's turn-based. And again, this isn't a knock on it. I love Aiden Chronicle, and I'm going to keep playing it because I love Suikoden games so much. But it is very outside of the boss fights. You can, for the most part, hit auto on everything. Like, you don't really have to do much combat. The compelling part is trying out new characters, maybe leveling up a new character you got, power level, like those kind of things are really fun.
Combinations,
recruiting people is a part of the gameplay that I think is really compelling and really good. But there's enough about the combat that I find to be repetitive and maybe at times a little too easy, at least when you're wandering the world. And almost, even though leveling up is nice, once you get to a certain level, they give you hardly any experience, and it is almost annoying at some point. Like, oh, stop throwing me into the so it reminds me of playing a late 2000s or an early 2000s, RPG in that respect. So that's the only reason I didn't move it over for like honorable mention. But I want to make it clear, I still love it, and I think it's a lot of fun if you like old school RPGs.
And I think what its actual most unique thing is the like war battles.
The war battles are great.
Yeah, those are like, that's the most unique gameplay.
It does sound like a cool idea, yeah. I will say another one that I just tipped my hat to, and I have a lot of same feelings that you just kind of said about your game, and it's Earth Defense Force 6. I would not bring it over because it's so repetitive. It's just too repetitive. Okay. But like, this would be my opportunity to be very annoying because I love this series so much, and I'd be like, I love this loop, but like ultimately you are just shooting things until the credits roll, and then not in a
but
very
if it does it well,
sure. Well, that's loaded too. I don't know. Like, I don't even know if I could firmly say it does this well. It's just it is a package of fun, half-baked ideas. But
All right, anything else that you guys think we should bring over? Squirrel with the gun.
Now listen here. Let's talk for the next couple hours about
this is a squirrel podcast now. All right. Well, we're like in a very similar space as we were last time, where we essentially have 20, and so we're gonna select 10, and the rest will be honorable mentions.
Okay.
So we don't have to narrow down to 20. We didn't pick too many to come over, so that makes it easier.
Being economical with our nominations, I like it.
Which I like. All right.
Efficient.
So, if there are ones that everyone feels pretty good about just locking and moving over, that does clear the deck a little bit. So, for example, I'm just working my way from the top down. Stuff like Astrobot and Final Fantasy. Some of the stuff we've talked about a lot already. Metaphor. Like, these feel like ones that are going to be in the top 10. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah. The three that you said, yes, absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Let's get those over there so they're...
Because the Metaphor is a good, example of like that game's not all combat. In fact, it's mostly talking. And
a lot of relationship building.
But like that stuff is done really well, and that stuff's not for everybody. But like that stuff is done really well in terms of like making you care about like your errands that you have to run, or your time management and stuff like that. So
yeah. All right, I'm going to put a couple things in the honorable mention section, like Balatro. I'm going to put Core Keeper in there, which is a super fun game, by the way. It's really, really well done. Any that you guys are like, yeah, this is honorable mention, I just wanted to give it a shout. Are there any that
Mullet Mad Jack?
Mullet Mad Jack?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, obviously, I'm still pretty early with Dragon Age, but I feel like that's top 10. I feel.
I thought you were going to go the other way. It's my favorite combat of the year.
We're gonna put it.
It felt like there was definitely going to be a lot of.
I thought you were
going to
go the other way, and I was going to fold immediately. Like,
oh, you're so nice.
No, I just feel. I mean, it feels like there's a lot of variety to unfold, and I'm just on one class too. Never mind, there's two other classes.
Yeah, so. I mean, it feels. To me, I can tell you if I liked Final Fantasy 16 or this more in terms of like modern day third person action combat or combo based, action games. Couldn't tell you.
So there's also all the all the dialogue of like making choices and developing relationships.
Other gameplay mechanics like the dialogue, yada yada. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So there's 3 games over here that I have pretty high on my personal list when it comes to gameplay, and I'm curious if you guys share the feelings on any of these. Astrobot's one of them that's already over there. There's 3 other ones. Indiana Jones, Prince of Persia, and Echoes of Wisdom, Legend of Zelda. I have those really high for a variety of reasons with the gameplay, which we can get into if we need to start comparing and contrasting. I don't want to spend too much time on each. But do either of you have those pretty high when it comes? Not that you made a list for this, but if you were to try to pick 10 to move over, would any of those be high enough?
Of those, Echoes of Wisdom would be on top for me because I think that it is so creative, and it's like it's a game that just gives you tools, and you're making the game as interesting as you want it to be. If you want to make beds across every
works.
gap or whatever, go for it, man.
But it's much more fun when you get like the flying tile and stuff like that. Then you set that and you jump on it, and then it
not
takes you
unlike
across.
the level of like a lesser version for sure, but like Tears of the Kingdom, where it's like there are just like you could go down rabbit holes on YouTube about like all the creative crap you can do in that game. So
the gameplay in of itself is like a puzzle that when you solve, I feel like it's satisfying because you're like, I just figured out like using this thing.
And if you really want it to be individual to you, like you'll share it, and someone will be like, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I looked up a guide on something after I finally figured out how I could do a stack. Like I did like a bed and then this tall tree and a trampoline and this combination of weird items, and it got me there. And then I looked up and someone else did a much cooler version of it. I was like, all right, whatever, that's fine. Like I did it a dumb way, but I still felt good about it because I solved it. So I like that. For now, I'm gonna move it over here. Same with Dragon Age, where it's just kind of like I feel like it's gonna go on there, but we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah.
I have Prince of Persia up pretty high, and then Indiana Jones up pretty high. Do either one of you consider those to be top?
What's your order for those?
I have Indiana Jones above it. I think.
Above it?
So
did you have it above Zelda too? Is Zelda the lower 3?
I have Indiana Jones. Yeah, okay. It is. Yeah, so Indiana Jones has it's got pretty basic first person shooting. That is not a good part of the gameplay. It's fine. The shooting's fine. I've used my gun like 4 times maybe across that whole game. That's not where the game shines. It shines with the stealth is really good. For the most part, the enemy detection is decent. Unless you're in a glitchy part of the game like I am.
I was gonna say this stuff has been really good so far for me.
Yeah, the ability to pick up things in the environment, like you can pick up a fly swatter or a pan or a bucket, or you can pick up all kinds of different things that are glowing, and you can use that to smack them or knock them out or whatever. And that part feels it feels like they've taken Indiana Jones, the character that we know from the movies, and they've injected gameplay features that are very him. Everything, even from how you use the whip. There's even I won't say what it is, but there's a part as you transition to the third area of the game that I immediately recognized as a callback, one of the great moments in those movies as a callback, and I was like, this is so cool. So and it was a gameplay moment that I got to do. So I love all that. It's not all done perfectly. It's not flawless, right? It's got its jank from time to time. It doesn't always read exactly where I'm trying to attach the whip to a certain part, whatever. So it's got some jank, but I am finding it to be so fun to play. I love exploring. I love the puzzles. I think they're really creative and really well done. So that to me is all part of the gameplay, and I think it excels in all those areas. Putting on the different outfits to access new areas of the map.
Yeah, very Hitman-like. Yeah. Putting on different. I did like that a lot. The outfits.
Mm-hmm. So I have it up pretty high. Personally, do you guys have that for any of the ones that are remaining too?
I was gonna say, like, if y'all have darlings, like move them over now. I feel like you should, like, the darlings always need to have that extra, a chance for to stay on the list.
These 3 would be darlings for me, but I'll wait on this one. I'll let you guys. I just talked a bunch. Is there anything else that's jumping out at you as like I really need this one in the list somewhere?
I'll say to start making like some cuts, maybe to cut down. Like maybe mini shoot doesn't make it over. Maybe I don't like how to like. I like that game a lot.
I know you guys feel strongly about that one though.
Yeah, but like it is just a twin stick shooter with an extra like it just has like the creativity of being not a copycat of a different game, but like taking on the skin or the identity of a different game. And I think that those ideas mesh really well together. But when you're talking about the mechanic heavy of some of these other games, like
I think it's an honorable mention.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's very,
maybe
very
the same
good.
with UFO 50, maybe. Like,
for sure.
Yeah. Helldivers would be another darling for me, and I think I would have. I don't think we bring that over because I have some darlings that I kind of have in mind already, and y'all haven't really played Helldivers 2, so like maybe that doesn't come over just because it's not.
Put it here for now because I think Like a Dragon's coming over too, right? The pure variety in gameplay.
The variety, yeah. See, I have other things I would want to like cheer for over Helldivers. So if y'all don't feel any way about Helldivers, like I'm already going to be fighting for some where I'm like, I'm going to have to cut, you know.
I diddled Helldivers a little bit, and it is super fun.
Yeah, I mean, the fun is killing your friends. The fun is, you know, like it is. I mean, like it is.
When
like,
is it not? You know,
it is baked into the game that you're supposed to be like, whoops, you know, like
whoopsies.
Yeah, when you know you maybe really meant to, but
I'm going to move Banishers and Nine Souls to our honorable mentions list.
Mm-hmm.
Both really excellent in their own right for what they're going for.
Got to name some darlings here, Dan. We're.
I mean, because the last.
I think we're looking at Black Myth and Stellar Blade for you.
Yeah, I was saying though, like those two are obviously very comparable, right? And in my head, I'm like, so which one do I really like? Because again, when I'm thinking
case about for both of them to be on there, you could.
When I'm thinking about gameplay, I'm like,
and you're the only person who played Dragon's Dogma 2, and I feel really strongly about that game too. But this is really becoming a Kyle list if we start bringing over every.
I mean, no, you know,
I got a lot of big feelings about.
Guys, I played that game for like 12 hours and then kind of lost interest. I actually found the gameplay at a certain point, and maybe it's the class I picked. I was like, "There's better versions of this." That's kind of why I justified not playing it anymore.
Yeah.
Dragon's Dogma.
Yeah. I definitely feel a lot different than you do about it. That's for sure.
What class did you pick?
I was like the warrior guy with the shield and sword.
Okay.
I thought it was fine. But I found
there's a variety in that too, because if we're talking like gameplay, like the adventuring in that game, I think is just unparalleled. Like when you set out of a city and like pick a direction, whether you're going towards a quest or not, like it is so, even though there's kind of a linearity, if you follow the roads, it is a linear game, quote unquote. It is about like getting off that road and
it's like
finding
those
Wild. Crevices. It is very, it just, and like you could do a whole gameplay session of that. I think I'm just gonna explore right now. And if I run into some cool monsters, I'll kill them.
I did that after finishing early on. There was a cave I had to go through and take out like this goblin boss, whatever he was. I forget what he was. And then after that, you can keep going through the back of the cave, and there's a different exit, and you're up in the mountains. And I did a lot of exploring. And if it's just on exploring, this one is really good in that aspect. Something about the combat does not work for Tim. I don't know what it is.
There's a weightiness to it that I think is also like with some people that they complain of like, oh, this game's 30 frames per second.
There is like a charming jank to it that I think that everyone kind of like. There's kind of like a Capcom, like I don't know. I get what you're saying because I've seen this echoed from other people. You know, I think this game has its fans, but like it's a pretty niche game. You know, that's why it took 15 years or whatever for this game to
make
come
a
out,
sequel.
You know, but like the people who like it really like it, and they had already kind of bought into the combat because the combat's not that different from the first game. You know, they've added some flourishes and it feels a little smoother. Yeah, but like it is fundamentally pretty similar.
Climbing the big enemies is cool. I
think again, that's another cool mechanic that just is underutilized a lot, you know. And I do like that, like the game doesn't hold your hand. There's not a lot of like dots on your map, you know. You kind of have to find out where things are and run into stuff.
Can we agree that your little pawns get really annoying with their repetitive.
Yeah.
Talking.
You can turn that off though. Yeah, you can turn that off. But yeah, you can turn that stuff off.
That might have changed my experience completely. I was like, shut up.
Yeah, they're
but like
yappy.
the pawns are another one of my favorite parts of that game, because like being able to like take I had like a ton of friends playing this game and absolutely loving it, and we were using each other's pawns, and it was so excellent because like someone would be like, hey, I made Yennefer, a Vanderberg, and I brought her in. I think that was my character, and then like someone else had like Casca, from Berserk, and I was like, I'm gonna put her in my party, and it's just like people were creating all these really interesting characters, and bringing them into your party is just kind of fun. I like that idea of like using other people's characters and the way that they like, hey, I've been here before, let me show you where this thing is. I love that. I think all that stuff is really cool, innovative, unique gameplay, but it's also just kind of
it's tying the online element into like just your world.
You got me convinced that it needs to be part of the conversation for the final cut.
Yeah, if it ends up like just not making her at the bottom 10,
I'm gonna put the same thing over here.
I just didn't know how strong. I didn't know how strong.
Unicorn Overlord out of here then for gameplay. It's got great strategic gameplay, but is it gonna hold water compared to some of these other ones?
I don't know. How strong do you feel about it? I mean, like I think it does pretty good, but like there are versions of this that I don't know if I prefer. I don't know. I just think I think it does what we know a game. I don't know, man, because it does have like.
Does it add anything new to the strategy genre?
Like the formation thing is kind of interesting, but that's
Formations
not exactly
are interesting, and the way that you move your characters around in a non-grid format, using the terrain that's different.
Yeah.
There's not many games that do that. It was Ogre
I feel
Battle.
Like it's a hybrid of a lot of different stuff, but it's not really exactly.
Yeah, it's not a grid.
Particularly.
Everyone expects like the Fire Emblem style grid. It's not that at all.
Yeah.
You don't pick attack. Your units, and based on the gear they have, the whatever, you can give them different classes, and so like it's all the strategy. The gameplay to me is mostly the strategy, planning ahead, picking your classes, gearing them up, whatever, putting your units together, upgrading those. And then it's just moving the units around the field, telling them go from point A to point B, and then waiting and watching it play out. You're like a general on a battlefield. And so it is unique in that sense, but I can also understand how, like, I wouldn't put it in over, like, I'd rather fight for Prince of Persia or Echoes of Wisdom or Indiana Jones than that one.
And like the other part of that gameplay is a lot of like, again, dialogue giving via talking heads, which isn't exactly innovative or the best way to deliver a story. So
there's a lot of reading. So some people don't like that as much.
I'm ready to get rid of Grand Blue Fantasy just because I'm the one who played it, and I've already got too many games that I'm having this like remorse of too many games being over there already. So get out of here, Grand Blue. Get it on budget. Sale, everybody.
Fair.
It's fun.
That's fair. Now, Kyle, you haven't said. Do you agree that Astrobot belongs in our top 10 for gameplay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And then it sounds like I think both of you agree for Rebirth and Metaphor, of course. But is that a weird assumption? Should I not assume that you want those in the top 10 for gameplay this year?
Yeah, I think Metaphor is like the greatest JRPG ever made. So I feel like I feel really bad if we had to.
And same with Rebirth, right?
Hard conversations.
That's pretty high on your gameplay list, I would imagine.
Yeah,
otherwise,
it's pretty high. Yeah, I have some qualms about like some of the fluff content in that game, but
here's my hot take. It's actually, where do I have it ranked? Because I did a quick ranking of this afternoon. I have it like at 8 on gameplay.
Top 10? No.
It is top 10.
It is top 10.
That's not because I didn't.
I'm trying to make it easier for Dan.
It's not because I didn't like playing it. I think it belongs on our top 10 list for gameplay. But when I thought of each moment I had and the times that I felt frustrated with the game, it was just gameplay related. It had nothing to do with the visuals, the characters, the story, the world, the music. Like, there were so many good things that I might whine about some of the gameplay moments that I thought were really a problem. And I did some of that Googling where I reaffirmed my own position, just looking up the things that I had, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Which other people would have the opposite. Like they would Google it the other direction and it was perfect. So whatever. What is it that Bill Burr calls it? Like I'mRight.com, and whatever opinion you had, you can confirm somewhere on the internet.
Yeah.
But it belongs on our top 10. So I have no problem with that. I'm more looking at these 7 we have so far, and now I think a combination of Black Myth, Stellar Blade, and
we still need to have this Black Myth, Stellar Blade.
They need to be in.
Dan needs to chime in. It doesn't have to be either or. If you feel really
well, I mean, this is the thing. Like now I have to come to the defense of Rebirth because Tim over here taking a giant dump on Rebirth.
I was going to add to it, but I didn't want to pile on. So
listen, it's not my fault. You guys just aren't good at Rebirth. All right, I'm just gonna throw
I
that
think my problem is not with the combat. I love the combat. I never had any of the difficulty spikes that Tim was talking about, but I have also seen people share that. I had problems with like the side content and a lot of like the
too much. Yeah, definitely too much.
Going to the towers, and like if I ever have to activate a tower in a video game again, I'm gonna lose it.
Climbing ladders was one of the worst designed features.
I don't like it. Yeah,
you did a good job with that. Sorry,
there's a lot of Chadley stuff, and I'm like, dude, screw you, buddy. I'm not doing that. You know, there's just a lot of things where I'm just disconnected from wanting to do it.
You can't pretend like gathering the Moogles in was a well-designed part of the game. Like
I hated the Moogle. I stopped doing the house. There was like halfway through the game, I was just like the things I didn't like. I'm like, I'm not doing that. And that's
Can I just tell you, all these things I'm mentioning, I was just charmed to death by this game, and I was so impressed by it. None of those things slowed me down. When I hit a boss that I was annoyed that like, okay, cool. So they're making me kind of learn on the fly, something new. They haven't taught me this entire game, and now like I was annoyed by that. I did think that was actually poorly. I think it's poor design personally, but I still was like, nope, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to look up a guide. Got it. I know what to do now. I don't like that they make you do this, but I figured it out, and I moved on because I loved the overall game so freaking much. But when we're just talking about the gameplay experience, I thought it was good. But I had much more fun playing other games. I had a blast playing Astrobot with zero problems. I had a blast playing Legend of Zelda and Indiana Jones and Prince of Persia, even Black Myth Wukong. The time I spent with that one, I preferred the way that game felt and flowed and what they were trying to accomplish. I think, not that we're just stuck on Rebirth, but I do think it's trying to do too much, and that caused it to sometimes cause some friction. I think it was just trying to do too much, and that's one of the good things about it, is because it does so freaking much. So that's all. It's an interesting thing with Rebirth, where some people are going to say, nope, it does everything perfectly. That's fair. It's totally subjective. You might love the way they did the pacing and the side content and the towers and all of the combat.
I knew some people who were like, I like towers.
That's totally fine. But I do think it's also, I think it's a legitimate criticism of it too. Just like it's a legitimate criticism to be mad that Arthur walks so slow in RDR2. I get it. Like you don't like the way he moves around.
That's not valid
but
for me.
Some people don't like the way he moves around, and they don't like the way that like it's more realistic.
Do you run in your kitchen, when you're cooking stuff? Like, run over to the sink!
Yeah, I absolutely do. What are you talking about? I'm sprinting all over the place.
By the way, with Arthur, I always shoulder charge through every store door because
I accidentally did that. But I like that the game's like, stop it, you oaf.
Yeah, they're like, whoa.
yeah. Sometimes like they'll even call the cops. Like people will be like,
yeah. All right, so in my head, it's like the trifecta of like the action game. It's Black Myth, Stellar Blade. I said Stellar Blade, Stellar Blade, and Rebirth. And for me, out of those three, so like with Rebirth, for me, like yes, it clicked. Like I didn't think the game was difficult, except for like some of the Chadley challenges, which are purposefully difficult because it's just like an extra thing of like, yeah, like we're gonna challenge you, so like fight these enemies and blah blah blah.
The summons were pretty tough too.
And there's different levels, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly.
You can make those fights easier. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I again, like I didn't, but this is my genre. Like character action games are kind of my genre too. So like maybe the gelling happens a little easier for me.
Could have been. I will say this just to make some clarity. It's not a difficulty spike. It's a frustration spike. And I said that a bunch of times. Like it wasn't that it was hard. It's that I don't like that they're funneling. It's such a wide open RPG. Do what you want. Create your characters and your builds however you like. You can put this together how you want. You can control whatever character you want. And yet you have to run everything through this. When you get to a boss, especially, and some of the side enemies are this way too. You have to go through this whole scan process, and you have to make sure you have the right materia equipped.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then you're kind of screwed. Or if you have the wrong people have it equipped at the wrong time. I found it to be frustrating, not difficult.
I kind of just feel like that's just JRPG stuff to me.
It can also be, but because it's an action game, I feel like my brain was not connecting the two dots.
I get that.
It was an action game, and I wanted to switch between. Remake didn't do this to me, so this was different, and all the different combinations of this it was just a different feeling game.
See, that's interesting that you say that, because literally Remake did do it. The specific boss fights that you do in that game, things are a little different.
Yeah, I remember like there being a couple in the first game, but I didn't hit a lot of because I remember like the house being like the big talk in the first game.
I had no problem with that house.
See, same here. Yeah, I kind of felt the same way about the house, but I guess a lot of people did get stuck on
but
that.
like, yeah, but the house is a great example because like literally the whole thing with that fight is like you're having to pay attention to the visual cues of him shifting his elemental things and stuff like that. So like suddenly you're doing this specific thing.
But you wouldn't do nothing. And I think you guys with Remake especially, yes, a strategy would pay off more if you went a certain way. And in Rebirth, you couldn't do any damage if you didn't do it the right way. It would you would literally you would literally get stuck if you didn't do this exact thing. Like you have to cast lightning.
I think that's just the RPG element, like how because like in Metaphor,
is, but like in RPGs, it would do more damage, but it's not going to do nothing. It's not like your sword now is ineffective or your other attacks are it's not like nothing's going to work.
Some of the JRPGs I played,
that's where I got frustrated.
Metaphor is a good example.
Yeah, I was going to say Metaphor is
I get frustrated when it's like, hey, this is a open RPG. You craft it how you want, approach it how you want. But by the way, I felt the same frustration at the end of Erdtree, where that final boss was like, okay, you're going to make me do one build that's going to work on this. No other builds are going to work. What crappy design. And that's me, the Elden Ring guy, saying that. That was a really poorly designed final boss, which I think they updated. I don't know how it is now, but I think that was really bad, where you narrowed people into a spot where they have to do a build this way. And that's how I felt, whether or not it was accurate. But when I was playing Rebirth, I just hit that moment where I was like, I don't want to keep doing this. So I finally just looked up a guy, did it exactly how they wanted. I didn't like it, but I just did it. And I actually didn't have that experience with every encounter. It was probably like 4 or 5 encounters throughout that game.
Parts in the game,
It was a lot of encounters in Rebirth.
There was some one-on-one encounters, especially the Kate Sith section was awful. I thought it was.
I hated
that one's a little rough.
I thought it was poorly designed, and I thought but I like the creativity of using here's where it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but I'm not. I like the creativity of the different characters and how they control. And I do. I think it allows all different players to pick which ones they like and focus on which ones they like. I think that's awesome. But when you're stuck and you have to play as a certain character, you have to play with certain moves. I just got frustrated in that moment. Whether or not
I think giving you so much in a video game comes at the cost of like having there be more to criticize, right? Because that game is just beefy. Like Rebirth is just an absolute like beefcake of a game.
That is so true.
If we're talking gameplay, like think about the amount of different type of events you're doing in that game. It's like side mission, like mini game wise and stuff like that. And you have Queen's Gambit, and you have all these other gameplay things that we haven't even brought up yet about this game that are outside of the combat, which is seemingly divisive. So it's.
I don't think the combat's divisive. I think it's generally accepted as an excellent system, but again, with it being our list, like I have a problem with it. It's kind of like, not unlike at all, Dan with Elden Ring, that is universally considered one of the greatest games ever made, and it won like every award that year. But Dan had problems with certain elements of it that other people were like, "What? That's not a problem," and that's totally subjective and totally fine. I feel the same way with Rebirth, where I was like, I felt frustrated as I played it more than I wanted to feel frustrated. I think that was part of it too, because I wanted to love it. Every moment of it, and I loved like 95% of it, and the 5% I didn't, I got really I was like, why am I not having fun? I should be having fun. I love this game. I was just getting really mad.
I will say with Elden Ring though, it is the best Souls game besides Sekiro, so just throwing that out there.
No, I'm just,
it does give you a lot of variety.
See what I'm saying, where it's like the things that you criticized it for, I was scratching my head, but also eventually was like, you know what, no, there's no right or wrong, this is just your experience with the game, and you liked or like elements of it. And it doesn't matter, in my opinion, if 99% of Reddit and other reviewers saw that exact thing you saw and thought the opposite thing of it. And it's the same thing with me. Like I see the combat and I got frustrated by parts of it. And I looked and I read, I was like, am I the only one? And it turns out I'm part of a very small group that didn't really like the combat.
You're part of the vocal minority, Tim.
It's a very small group, in my opinion. The more criticisms I saw with Rebirth, I thought are ridiculous. Like, oh, the pacing's just real bad, and the story just didn't, and it was too confusing.
The pacing is like that's so in your control, Like if you're gonna dig in and do every little thing.
I stopped looking for reassurance on my I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna accept this.
My problem is the bloat, but like I chose, like I said, I chose to stop doing things I didn't like, and like that.
Right. Yeah.
I never missed a beat. So there was never a moment where I was just that's like, right.
Like that's right. But I do think
you're in control. You can choose to go to that tower. You can choose to find Moogles. You can choose to do all that stuff. I guess the towers are not really that optional, but like the Moogle stuff, stop it. Quit doing it if you don't like it. You know.
Well, that's why I wanted to have this category not just be combat. So if it were just combat, then I would be Mr. Party Pooper on Rebirth. But it's not just combat. It's all the gameplay. And let's just say there were 100 gameplay features, and I know that's not the number, in Rebirth. I think it does such a vast majority of them well, and in some cases, like really, really well. To me, it's one of the best overall gameplay experiences I've still had this year. It still is. It's just not my top one.
Yeah, if we're just collectively put in 70 hours in a game just because it's okay, you know, like we're exactly something's chugging us along.
So like if it were just combat, I'd probably fight more for Black Myth, even though I only played it for probably 4 or 5 hours. But it's not just combat; it's all the gameplay. So I would vote for Rebirth over that one personally.
Because like, as far as like Stellar Blade and Black Myth, so Black Myth Wukong feels like, because there are some areas that open up a little bit. A lot of it is linear, but then it kind of has some areas that are like just have some space to breathe in, right? But it's still like kind of funneling you into these other like these little like arena spaces where you're like, all right, now you're fighting this boss. It's almost like a boss rush game a little bit, but like with some kind of like open areas to kind of like fight regular enemies and gain experience, and like there's a whole skill tree. So there is a little bit of like that RPG-ness in there too. Of gaining like the skill points and upgrading your skill tree there and new abilities and everything, which is very actiony.
And you learn like new magic moves or whatever over time as you go, whatever your special abilities or whatever.
Yeah, they keep tacking on more. So there's actually very in depth the systems in that game.
Agreed.
I would say Stellar Blade is actually a little less in depth, but like the systems that are there do feel good. Like it feels very good to parry and dodge things in Stellar Blade. Like there's just this nice slow motion like animation where when you deflect something, or when Eve like does like a side flip when she's dodging something, it looks and feels sick. But there's just not as much depth in as far as like the upgrading and like what I was basically using the same like 4 or 5 moves more or less in Stellar Blade. But like it just all looks sick. Like it just looks good. But same with Black Myth Wukong,
Can I say something against Stellar Blade? And I know this is why I stopped playing the game. The platforming is not great in that game.
Yeah,
that is gameplay.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's early on. Like even when you're trying to swing across the poles to get to a certain spot, I was like, and the wall climbing. I wanted to be like, hey, you guys don't have to do the wall climbing.
Yeah, no. Like this is not necessary. Like it's. No one's telling you. You need
to go to a cutscene where she does some cool like girl flip up the wall and then like let me fight some more.
I'll take all the girl flip cutscenes. I don't need that moment. Yeah, but that's
it's
such a small like. I know that's like not a big part of that game. You know what I mean? I know it's present, but not like like the star is the combat.
So it sounds like maybe Stellar Blade is a really strong honorable mention. It sounds like it's not going to be in our top 10.
I just remember, and I can't speak to Black Myth Wukong, but I remember watching trailers of it and going, holy crap, like the combat just looks so good in that game. So like if it plays as good as it looks, like
I think Black
Myth
is
definitely more of
a
fluidity. Yeah, it's definitely more of a fluidity with Black Myth Wukong. But I will say that like with Stellar Blade, like there's more going on in the world, like because you go back to like a town with this, so it's like the hub, and you are doing side quests and like you are upgrading stuff. So, but like Black Myth is. I'd say the combat is definitely a bit stronger in Wukong than it is Stellar Blade.
Okay.
So let me kill a darling here. Space Marine 2 is fantastic. It is just a cover-based shooter, hard stop. There's nothing else going on. It is
can
perfect.
Chainsaw fools.
It is perfect at that. Yeah, that's the other thing. It is kind of have the melee and stuff like that like makes it stand out from other shooters. I would love to bring that over, but like just looking at what we have over there, it's getting too nutty. And when you're talking about the depth of mechanics, there's just not a lot of depth in Warhammer. In terms of variety, you're going to be landing in you're not landing, but you're going to be walking into a level, and you're going to slowly walk through that whole level while being a big beefy killing machine. And like that is the game. It is great. It is great. But when you're talking about like variety of gameplay and stuff like that, like it doesn't have that.
Yeah.
So let's kill it. Let's kill the darling.
All right, so I'm looking at Stellar Blade and Indiana Jones. I wish I bumped back over just for the sake of space, because I didn't get a good feel yet. I know, Dan, you haven't played it.
Yeah, I just haven't played it at all.
Kyle, are you kind of like, yeah, I don't feel strongly one way or the other? Is it more about the presentation?
Yeah, I just don't feel strongly about it yet. I think everything you're saying is perfect about it, but like everything else I'm seeing on that other side, like just seems like more of the types of games that I usually play.
Yeah.
Whereas like Indiana Jones is a little slower, but like purposely so, because you're a real guy. You're not some guy. You're not, Zelda with a wand. You're not a guy, climbing up Titans or whatever. So it's just. I don't know. I'd probably.
It's more like what if Agent 47 knew how to have fun in a Hitman game? That's what Indiana Jones.
Let me try and make a really good parallel here. When we did this last year, I hadn't beaten Alan Wake 2 yet, so like I couldn't rank it very high, even though I felt really strongly about loving it.
Such a good game.
Yeah, exactly. And now I've beaten and I played it. Like I'm like, oh, it's probably in my top 3 games of last year or whatever. Indiana Jones, like when I play and beat this game here in the next couple months or whatever, it is I know going to climb my list. So I'm going to be like, well, we fucked up, guys. Like.
So I do think Echoes and Prince should be over it personally.
Okay. Yeah.
Honestly, the only other one that's a darling of mine is Astrobot. So those are kind of my 3. And so then with Stellar Blade, it'd be a matter of we'd have to switch out something else. We'd have to say, all right, we're gonna reconsider it versus Black Myth, or
There's 3 in a row there that are just mine. We don't need to have that. That's insane. We don't need to have 3.
I thought for some reason I thought Dan played Dragon Age, didn't he?
No, I have, just not like a ton, but I do feel like it's pretty obvious that like the combat just feels, the gameplay feels strong, the world and like allowing you to like have all these characters in your party and like having all of this depth of getting to know them and the options, the games where you make choices and things affect the world and so on and so forth.
Well, I definitely feel stronger about Like a Dragon than I do Helldivers 2, even though I think Helldivers 2. I think in most people's list, Helldivers is going in like best combat, best gameplay, best whatever, because it is just a game about. I don't know though. We just don't have
enough multiplayer game or whatever.
Yeah. Right. I feel like there's just a lack of people here playing it, and just a lack of me wanting to push for it because I have other darlings.
Dan, would you put Dragon's Dogma 2 or Stellar Blade on the list if you had to pick between those two? I know you've played both.
Ooh. Shit. Tim, why are you putting me through? Why are you doing?
I'm just trying to gauge how much you love. I know you love Stellar Blade, so I'm trying to gauge like how much enough that you would fight against Dragon's Dogma with it, just for your personal take. I know that Kyle's also played Dragon's Dogma 2, but
Stellar Blade would be slightly above Dragon's Dogma.
Okay,
slightly above.
Is that mainly just combat centric? Just it feels so good. The
it's a little faster. I do because I love character action games. Yeah, they're like one of my favorites. So like Devil May Cry's and your Bayonettas and so on and so forth. And Stellar Blade is just a bit of a faster game. So I like the speed of it. So.
Kyle, do you have Dragon's Dogma 2 or Helldivers 2 higher than each other between these?
Dragon's Dogma over Helldivers.
Okay. All right, so if we had to, it seems like it's between Helldivers 2 and Stellar Blade is what it's coming down to.
Unless, Helldivers to bring Stellar Blade.
Hang on, before I do that, did either one of you play Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown? That might be an easier one to get rid of.
No, not yet.
Did you
I actually have it? The disc version and everything.
You do?
Yeah, I got that was one of the games I nabbed with my with the gift card. It was the GameStop buy 2 get 1 free, and I was like, oh, because I was like, what am I gonna pay? And then I just I was scrolling, I was like, oh shit, I didn't realize it came out on disc. So
yeah, I think it's like Dead Cells level of kind of side-scrolling platforming combat and just control. I think it's phenomenal. I'm so bummed that team was not fired but disbanded internally over there, but who knows what's happening over there. I hope they sell off their IP at some point because this is getting stupid.
Yeah, I so agree with that.
Yeah. But anyway, all that to say, if I had to pick between these two, I would probably slightly give the edge to Prince of Persia, but I know I've got more support on Echoes of Wisdom just because of the sheer creativity that it has. Kyle was saying some stuff about it. Dan, I know you're familiar with it too, at least with the way it looks. I don't know if you've played it at all, but so that one would probably be more of a shared agreement on Echoes of Wisdom, whereas Prince of Persia, it's 100% focused on platforming and combat. It's those two things. Echoes of Wisdom is more about exploring and creating and, Breath of the Wild.
It's very unique.
It's very, very unique, yeah. Whereas Prince of Persia is just
I'll throw a curveball at you. I would put Prince of Persia over Echoes of Wisdom.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
They're a co-op, yeah.
Do it.
Because like I like the creativity of Legend of Zelda, I'm more likely to pick up Prince of Persia and play it.
Yeah.
Just because I do like the combat in that game, and you know, it's got exploration because it's Metroidvania. It's got really platforming.
I don't feel that we need to get rid of Helldivers. I don't think it matters too much to me personally how much. I'm trying to gauge what are the best gameplay games of the year, and so it doesn't matter to me if it's like how many of our darlings are in, as long as we get one or two that we really loved in there, and then we just go from there. So I do think Helldivers deserves a spot.
I'll say something about Helldivers. I don't think I've ever like the podcast #1 game of last year, Baldur's Gate 3. Much like that game, there's those moments of gameplay where when you're with friends and something happens and you're all there to see it, like nuking your best friend on accident or pushing him off a moving boat, you know, or something like that, like I did in Baldur's Gate 3. Like those moments, like where you're cracking up, it's 2 a.m, you'll cry laughing, you know, like it's just like that's what you play video games for, right? That's what we were all playing, you know, GoldenEye for back in the day. That's what we're all, those moments of like shared, you know, camaraderie and goofiness and silliness. And I think Hellblades 2 is just a factory of creating goofy silliness. And it's just packaged up with really good gameplay too. I think the perspective shift is really good. It's not a top-down shooter anymore. It's behind, you know, it's a third-person shooter. I think it's a sharp-looking game, you know, and it's just fun. It's a fun game, and you can pick it up anytime, while it's going on, even though it's an ongoing story. And like the game just knows how to throw you into a situation, and you just make the best out of it.
I like that. You know? I have a feeling that if each one of us picked a game to remove out of these bottom 3, we pick different ones. Let me just tell you what I predict, and tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Because I would probably remove, just based on what I've experienced with these, Helldivers 2, because I've played enough of Stellar Blade to really appreciate what they're doing. I feel like Kyle would remove Stellar Blade, and Dan would remove Zelda. Is that correct?
I would remove Zelda of these 3.
Oh, you would?
Yeah, Dan, I didn't love Stellar Blade, but like I am a big fan of like this.
Okay,
like
that might simplify it then.
This Chinese movement of like these really great ideas from a part of the world that we haven't seen share their ideas yet in this medium because of, you know, laws and stuff. So
I think Stellar Blade is in, and then Dan, I'll give you the final say on this one. Since I hurt your heart talking about Rebirth in a way that's anything but glowing. So, but you tell me, which one do you think, based on everything we've said about both, which one deserves to stay on the list? And I'm actually fine with either one. I think there's good cases for both.
Keep the Helldivers. Nuking your boys is fun.
But the very first time a nuke goes off in that game, and like you stand there and you're all saluting, like while you're being eaten by bugs, dude. There's nothing. I don't know, man. I don't know if I've ever laughed so hard in my entire life. So
the idea of you're doing something, you're like spreading democracy or something like that. Right?
Yeah. No, the best thing to do is you get everybody in the evac, you know, ship to get off the planet, but then right before you get on it, you put a strike down on it, and you kill everybody as you're lifting off, and you just ruin the entire mission for everybody. And it does sound mean-spirited, but like the game is just created in a way where like the more you kind of accidentally screw each other over, the more fun you're having, you know?
That's fair. That's fair.
That's
all
fair.
right. I do think our bottom section is looking something like this. This is based on the ones that squeaked in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm fine. You guys raise any thoughts you have if you feel like the ones I'm leaving down here, because right now I'm just organizing the bottom section here, right? Like kind of a 6 through 10. I feel like Black Myth, Stellar Blade, Helldivers 2, since they were all part of the conversation to kind of get in towards the end, probably towards maybe Black Myth is going to be at the top of the bottom 5. But what else do you guys think based on everything we've been saying together? Prince of Persia.
Yeah, maybe Prince of Persia sneaks somewhere in there.
Somewhere in the bottom 5. I don't know where yet. This isn't an order. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I'm fine with Helldivers being number 10, to be honest. So, maybe I don't know, Like a Dragon, like somewhere around there too. You know, like I don't know. Yeah, this is hard. Yeah, I don't know.
You have metaphor over Like a Dragon? Because I think Dan's gonna have. For gameplay, just your gameplay experience, not an overall game yet.
Oh man, I just said Metaphor is the best RPG ever, but there's so much more going on. Like,
yeah, but that doesn't mean that you would pick it above.
You could literally go, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to go race karts like a Mario Kart game.
That's what I'm saying. Sometimes variety is going to trump doing one thing really, really well. Sometimes.
So
like a dragon.
I mean, I literally just finished Metaphor today. Now, so starting number one gameplay, right? I mean, I've played RPGs like Metaphor. Like I can't think of anything right now where I'm like, Metaphor did this gameplay like combat wise different than XYZ RP. Like I can't. Like to me, it's just
well though, right?
It does it well, yeah, of course. But it just doesn't do anything different. And then as far as like the relationship stuff, I mean, like they've done that before, right? With the Persona series.
So you're making a case that they're playing the hits a little bit.
Yeah, like it's obviously the setting itself, the actual literal setting itself is what's like sticks out more, like as the more unique thing that they're doing here, right? Like the just straight up dark fantasy.
The story,
yeah. And while
and then the story,
I agree with what you're saying, I definitely think that this is the best like turn-based has ever felt, though. So it's like I think it
does feel good. I do like the actiony elements of being on the outside.
I think that's a part of it too. You know?
I think that's something RPGs need to just do from here on out. So that is definitely a pro for sure.
Kyle, tell me what you think about these three games together. I'm not putting them by number. I'm grouping these together. Tell me what you think about.
Let's see.
What like Metaphor, Dragon Age, and Dragon's Dogma, as you think about the experience of playing through those games and everything they have to offer.
Oh, God. I might feel the best. Oh man, I don't know.
Because Dragon Age, of course, has great dialogue, right? It's BioWare.
Yeah, the combat is out of control. That's the.
So you're gonna have good character building, good relationships to build, great combat, and it really isn't it very varied? Like you can pick different classes and
the classes are very different. Yeah.
Okay. And Metaphor has some similarities. It's just turn-based because you can do the different whatever they're called.
It's true, yeah. Again, like maybe like Dragon Age is a little more fun to play, but like I don't know if it's doing everything like at the peak of their game like Metaphor is, which is why I'm kind of like dragging my feet. Like I think like whereas Dragon Age, like, oh yeah, that's an easier game to pick up and then immediately start having fun because like the combat is so like fast and quick and feels good, and like you might turn on Metaphor and be like, oh yeah, I'm in a stretch of talky stuff, like and I might be here for like 5 or 6 hours, before I get to like fight.
Before you do anything action.
And like I don't have a problem with that, but like I'm just saying when it comes to like the knee-jerk reaction of picking up and the immediacy of having fun with something. Maybe Dragon Age, but like again, I think I give more credit to something who does all the things in their game at the peak of what has come before it, and I think that's Metaphor. Whereas like I think, Dragon Age has really good dialogue, really cool characters. I think I've liked other characters and other dialogue in other similar games, like it just it's not the best of its class, even though it might be some of the best combat that you could play this year.
Would you put it above both of those above Dragon's Dogma 2? Just in terms of what game?
I think I put Dragon's Dogma 2 above all of these, to be honest.
So Dragon's Dogma 2 is really high for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll leave this down here with this. So, but I feel like these two are probably in the middle. Especially, I was just thinking about what you were saying, Dan, about like I didn't get a vibe at all that you didn't like it or enjoy it. You're just trying to pull out the differences, where to compare, and it's like I feel like gameplay wise, maybe Metaphor doesn't do enough different that you would feel the need to really push for it to go high up. Is that the vibe that am I reading that correctly? That's kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, because when I'm thinking about what it's doing, like gameplay wise, it's like, well, this is just oversimplifying it and maybe whatever, but like it's like, oh, Persona, but like we're doing it in a fantasy setting, but we're doing it at a higher quality. So it's like that's not a bad thing. It's just you're not tacking on this extra element of like, oh, you didn't do this in the Persona games. Like also there's the time restraint stuff or like the very organized day. Like this is the day that's Tuesday and we're doing this today. And you have to do, like we've done that.
I felt like that stuff all felt cleaner and more streamlined and easier to understand. And, just like the combat, like it's not different. I just feel like it's singing in this one.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, what about Dan? What about, Black Myth Wukong compared to something like Metaphor for your preferences on gameplay? Because I know you're a character action guy, but I also know you love your JRPGs.
And I also know you beat one of these and didn't beat the other.
That's right. One of them kept your attention.
I want to bring that up in a big way. I think that matters.
So if we did like a Dragon Age and Metaphor in this middle section, Black Myth staying below those makes sense to you, do you think? What do you think?
Yeah, it does. I think Wukong is too long. Like, and not like it's like, it's too long, so I'm minusing points, but like it is.
That's a big hurdle for me, you know. Like character action games are like even them getting to 20 hours, you're like, wow, that's a lot of content for a character action game, you know.
And like
Nier, you could beat in like 12 to 14 hours. Yes, you had to beat it like multiple times, automata, you know, but like that game did not overstay its welcome, and I was kind of afraid this game might, you know. I don't. But of course,
I will say Nier is way more interesting, and like there's an actual fleshed out story, whereas like Black Myth Wukong is like it's based off an old story, but it's just like there's just kind of like interesting like little moments that are interconnected that are just kind of happening, and it's all visually cool. But it's like, what is really going on in Wukong? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, the Monkey King maybe lost his powers. Maybe
it's a little more surreal, you know.
It's a very simple concept, and it's just kind of there, and it's fine. It works. It's cohesive, but it's just like I'm not like I'm rooting for the Monkey King. Like it's just like like a thing happened to him, and now he has to like get his powers back, and like we're going through the journey, like, you know, to the west.
There it is.
All right, so I'm with you. Black Myth Wukong living right there by Prince of Persia Stellar. So these are good at our 7 through 10 rankings. I based on what you guys are saying, and this is mostly secondhand because I've only played the prologue portion of Metaphor. I feel like Dragon Age gets the edge based on what you guys are saying, just barely. But I don't know.
Again, like my conversation about it, going back to like what the easier, like how like the quickness of the fun, you know. I think Dragon Age may have that beat, but again, you could get in a part in Dragon Age where it's like, boy, I've been talking to people for like 2 hours about their dumb political issues or whatever, you know, like, so they both kind of have these like long stretches of like talkiness and stuff like that, but like, I don't know, man. The combat feels really good, and sometimes a turn-based game, no matter how well done, can just kind of feel slow, you know, like or that you're even though it's, you know, again, Dan and I are huge fans of this genre, a turn-based genre, but like there is something that feels really good about smashing someone in the face with like daggers and spells and stuff like that in a really frenetic, you know, high speed type of scenario like Dragon Age gives you.
Do you have Like a Dragon above both of those, Kyle?
For me, yes.
So then I think that maybe then, since you guys share the enjoyment of Metaphor, maybe Dragon Age goes here, and then we decide.
I have beat Metaphor. I haven't even beaten Dragon Age, so
you know.
Yeah. So I think now we're looking at more of these 5 in the top 5 and figuring out.
And if Dan doesn't feel as strongly about Dragon's Dogma as I do, because I think he was saying he liked Stellar Blade more, or Black Myth more, like that can go into the lower half. I just like was really smitten by the exploration in that game. And I understand that the combat's not everybody, you know, but I feel like the exploration, the sense of going on a journey.
It's all the gameplay, right? It's everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The sense of like, again, embarking on a journey and just like you thinking you have a plan and that plan derailing so quickly about like what you thought you were going to be doing is like, again, it's like, it's the kind of the same things I said about Elden Ring last year, where it's like that game didn't like win me over in the way that it did everybody else. But like, there is no denying that game has some of the best exploration this side of Breath of the Wild, you know, like it's just incredible.
Freaking Metroidvania.
Like, it's just incredible in the way, but not even that, but also, again, I always mention that word topography, but like the realness of the way that a world or a map is like laid out, where it's not on a flat surface. Like that game has so many peaks and valleys and ways of feeling not artificial. And now we're just talking about Elden Ring. But yeah, I think that stuff matters. I think that I think that Dragon Age has a similar like type of topography in a way. Maybe it's not as open, but like it just has a realistic way of the way that the world is presented to you and the way that you can explore stuff. Like, I'm not going to just walk straight up this mountain like you can in Skyrim. You got to figure out some way around it. And whether that's through a mine shaft or around it by taking a major road, like that's kind of up to you. And you're going to get a way different experience depending on what you choose. Yeah. And we probably all have different, like, hey, when I set out for that quest, this is what happened to me. It's like everyone's got a different story of how like things unfold in that game. Yep. You might all hit it at different points, but like just the way that you get there and the way that you interact with it it's really something, you know. But I do understand that the combat again, like I've heard this my entire life, like Dragon's Dogma just kind of feels janky, you know, like there's a jankiness to it, you know. You know, not unlike like Monster Hunter, where like it doesn't feel like the most I don't know, like quick, you know, combat system
it's actually
ever.
a good comparison.
But like
it's gonna work for some people, but I get it when it doesn't.
There is like a weightiness to that game that is specifically for that game, and it is part of the DNA of Monster Hunter. And I kind of feel that same way about Dragon's Dogma. Is that like the DNA, like
Capcom?
It's exactly. It's that combat is baked into what makes that game the way that it is, but it doesn't mean everyone's got to like it, you know.
But like similar to like you're saying with Monster Hunter, is there's so many different weapons in that game, and they all have different styles.
Yeah.
So you have to like find, because you could use one weapon and be like, well, this game sucks because this weapon doesn't click for me. But it's like, no, you got to just try a different weapon.
Yeah,
and I think that's
like
the case.
9 classes in that game, like, and they're all completely different. Like they couldn't be more different. You know,
I think Tim, like gameplay wise, it might have been because I think that the Sword and Shield is a bit slow. Like
it's considered the most boring class, but it's also like the most effective. You know, so
yeah,
it's one of those things where I was bummed by it because all the things you're talking about, getting ready for an adventure, loading up, getting your missions, talking to people. I upgraded a bunch of stuff. I did a lot of the combat, but I was like, okay, it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. I unlocked like a parry move and stuff like started to unlock some cool stuff. And then I would get back into combat and be like, oh, still not very fun. All right. I'm going to keep adventuring. I'm going to keep exploring. And I just, the combat again.
You should have pivoted to a different class. You might have a different opinion about it. Yeah.
I might.
But, I get it, though. I totally get it, though.
I went Thief or whatever it is with the daggers. And that's like,
that's what I started.
It's more fun.
But then I became like a Dragon Knight or a Dragoon or something like that. And like, that's like a pull. I'm like, oh, man, that class was really something.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't help when you're already kind of like, I don't know, do I like this or not? And I got to figure out the combat. Should I try different? And then shut up, you pawns. You know what I mean? Like there was that experience that just kind of made me whatever. And that's not really fair to the game. That's me picking.
Especially when there's a setting that you can turn those on.
I didn't know that. That's mind blowing to me. But okay, so either one of you, I won't single out either one of you, but either one as you're looking at this list. Where do you think things land? We haven't really dug in much to Astrobot, or really, we've talked a lot about the rest of them and their different gameplay features, pros and cons. Astrobot, though, it's a family-friendly platformer with kind of Mario Odyssey-like different powers as you get to different areas, and then you revisit some of them for certain boss fights in certain areas. So yeah, but in my opinion, very tightly controlled, really like spot on controls. It feels right. Like the game to me just feels really good. It's how a platformer should feel. It's the first game that Nintendo hasn't made where a platformer just feels perfect to me.
It's the closest to Nintendo anyone's ever gotten.
I think so.
Hard stop.
And there's so many secrets, a lot of fun stuff. They introduce a lot of ways that you can go back and revisit levels with your little bird friend if you want to point you to like the puzzle pieces or other things that you missed. So if you're a collector, a lot of fun stuff there. And some of those challenges are really tough, but the main game isn't. So they balance out difficulty for those who want it with just a nice main storyline, very doable levels. Even for kids, 2 of my kids beat it. But they didn't even touch the challenge stuff because it gets really tough.
I'll also say that every time you think that the camera is not going to work on something, the camera is always perfect. I don't think I ever had a single moment where ever. And like usually it does a good job of like moving itself and orienting itself to where it needs to be. I almost never had to control it.
I imagine that's got to be challenging.
Absolutely, yeah, because the amount of stuff that like, especially the perspective changes and like all the things that are changing and the way that like cameras can just kind of maybe auto move to get the better thing, and I've just seen that go wrong so many times, and it just never once went wrong in this game.
Now, to be fair, we're talking about depth, and we're talking like a lot of the things that you guys have brought up, which are really good points, is, you know, how deep are these systems, and how much can you control, and how much can you edit? And I mean, Astrobot out of these 5 games is hilariously shallow in that realm of like you're not really upgrading.
And I would also say that they do a good job of changing the gimmick or mechanic per level. You know, like they do a good job, you know, like maybe, you're doing a similar thing. Like, I'm just jumping a little higher. Right. I could throw a thing now or whatever. But like, the variety comes there, and then the choices they make are unique, and then you get into like a level where it's like a shooter, and you get into a level where it's like a toboggan or whatever. Like there's just a lot of variety there, even though it is just a platformer. So we can, it's maybe sneakily deeper than.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And I do think, and this is not the only thing that makes gameplay good. Like everything you guys have brought up, and then I brought up too. I mean, it's all valid, whether it's the depth of the systems or whatever it is, the fluidity and the control and all that stuff. But there is a fun element. Like, how fun is this game to play, moment to moment? When I pick up a controller and I just know I'm gonna have a blast. I don't have to set anything up. I don't have to overthink. I can just get in there and start having fun. To me, this wins in that. Whatever element that carries weight for some people in different amounts, I totally get it. But that to me is a really big one, which is why for me it's not by a lot, but it is out of these, it's going to be my favorite. Just pure gameplay.
I've used the term video game on this podcast quite a few times, and I think that matters. So when we're talking about like what a video game is, like in a universal term, and like this is not my genre, so like this is not something that I'm usually like vying for and wanting for or wishing for and stuff like that, and I have nothing but good things to say about this game.
I agree.
That counts. That matters. I like this game more. I like this game more than Mario Odyssey. Like I like it like way more.
Close on it.
Wow. Okay.
I do still prefer Odyssey.
Now Kyle's
I don't know if it's better.
Heart.
I don't know if it's better. I don't know if it's a better game. I like it more.
It's personal preference too. Some people don't love Mario as much as others do, but that also speaks to the excellence of playing it. So with Like a Dragon, we're getting to the point where it's like, okay, how many of us have actually played these and can all agree on where it should land? So I think Like a Dragon's probably at 5.
Okay. Yeah.
What do you think?
I still we really haven't circled back to like Stellar Blade being such a darling for Dan, and if he likes that more than Black Myth, likes it more than even like that, I'm happy with Stellar Blade moving up. You know what I mean? If you feel really strongly about Stellar Blade, because I feel like that might be like your darling of the year. The amount of times you brought that game up, and
I think Stellar Blade is probably his version of Prince of Persia.
Like for me, it sounds like to me he likes Stellar Blade more than Black Myth Wukong. So I don't really, and neither you or I have played back, so I don't know why that one's as high as it is. Personally.
I did play it. I just didn't get super far into it, but I did play it.
Oh, excuse me, pardon me.
Yeah, I did play. I do like it a lot.
Oh man. We got a turn-based, actually two turn-based RPGs. That's funny. Platformer action RPG. No, I think I'm fine. I think I'm fine with where Stellar Blade is. Just because, like, with Black Myth Wukong, I just think that the gameplay and what is available there in the combat specifically is more varied.
Talking about the depth, and then
the depth of that I appreciate.
And you like the combat, like what stopped
combat?
You
great.
What stopped you from playing it? Like
other games that came out.
Actually, Black Myth? It was just other games.
Most same specifically, with you. It was the Shattered Space DLC came out, and I had been kind of jonesing for jumping back into that space adventure, so I did that.
You traitor! You like Starfield? What happened?
I know. So I started playing that, and then. Well, I did go back to Black Myth Wukong, and I got demolished. I was like, "Crap! I'm out of the."
You fell out of the.
I need to get back in the groove. Do I want to get back in the groove? And then I started reading things like Dan was saying, where it's like, this game is really good. It's really long, and boy, does it get much. I kept seeing people post about how much harder it gets, and I was like, I want that right now.
And it's difficult too. Yeah, so it's a long game and it's challenging. So
So I think I've done enough teeth grinding this year between Sekiro and Shadow of the Erd Tree. I was like, I don't grind my teeth anymore.
I think this top 5 is trickier for me because like in my, so I'm just gonna throw it out there. I mean, my number one, I'm a cliche at this point, is Rebirth because despite the flaws of like a lot of fluff for sure, I 100% agree with that. I think there's definitely too many mini games. I do think there's that typical Square silliness of like, yeah, you're gonna climb this tower, but look, this part is broken, so now you got to climb up a rope and then you swing around. It's like, all right, guys, just let me climb the damn thing.
More than getting to a tower and being like, now we're a platforming puzzle. I'm like, that's not what you are. You're not a platformer. That's not what you are. Don't do that. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But like, yeah, so like obviously there's like those things kind of sprinkled throughout, right? But like,
okay, so name some criticisms about Astrobot. So you have criticisms about Final Fantasy.
So
your favorite. You have criticisms about.
By the way, I want to say positive things about Rebirth real quick while our minds are on it. I love the character connections. I love the relationships because we are talking about combat. The combat has more good than bad, even though it probably didn't sound like I was saying that. It does have more good than bad. That game is like, what did I play that for 70 hours? And for me to say, for me to say like 4 or 5 encounters frustrated me. That's insane. I had how many encounters did I have?
Not like 5% of the game. I love games that I hate 15% of. So
exactly.
You know what I mean?
So I did not hate the combat.
I followed you.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the character, I love the relationship stuff. I of course. Like Tifa all the way, obviously, but like I don't know. That part was really cool. You could build relationships and have conversations with characters and build that over time. I really liked all the mini games. I had no problem with the mini games. It was some of the side missions that over time I was like, I don't want to go do another one of these or another one. Like that. Well,
your typical fetch questy type
had a little bit of Ubisoft flavor to the side quest map that would open up and the towers you got to use to unlock. I didn't hate any of that. It just wasn't excellent. Those parts of those things, but man, there's so much about it that I did really, really love. I loved exploring with the chocobo. Each chocobo in each area has a new ability that gets around a little bit better. That's cool. So there's a lot.
It reminded me. It gave me that feeling just on a large scale, which again, just then it's so many hours, so you're doing a lot of it. But it gave me that feeling of what I specifically love about the PS1 Final Fantasies is that element of exploring and finding secrets. Like you get out into the world map and you get to a certain point in the game where you get a vehicle of some sort that you're seeing a lot of the world, and then eventually you get an airship and you're seeing everything, and you're like, all right, so what cool extra side stuff can I find here, or like what optional bosses are available here that I can like stumble across, and I think that's like what Rebirth like gave me, like on a huge scale, which again can feel like a lot and it can be overwhelming, but that's the feeling that it gave me, and I think that's why I like it that much.
Well, Dan, I can relate to that.
The PS1 era.
I can relate to that so much though, because that's what you wanted. So fluff doesn't feel like fluff when it's a world that you are just hungry for. So like a good example of that is Red Dead Redemption 2. I am so into that world right now. That everyone else will be like, dude, that's so boring. You're just going hunting.
You're just skinning animals right now. I was like, I've been doing it for 10 hours.
I am having so much fun doing it. So like, dude,
I get it.
I absolutely get what you're saying on that, 100%. What about Astrobot? We talked a little, or Kyle and I talked a little bit about our thoughts on that.
So I plowed through that game. I beat it in like 3 days. I really do enjoy it. I do enjoy it a lot. I do like Odyssey more though, just because I think Odyssey has.
I think most people do. Yeah.
Just mainly only because it has a lot of. So to me, I think it's unique. I think he has. Mario has his hat, and there's the whole element of him throwing his hat on enemies and becoming something different. Possessing them, and then that in of itself is a new gameplay loop, because like you're doing something different with whatever you've possessed. In Astrobot, I think Astrobot is like a good beginning building block. It's like a good first, like we're setting up the building blocks of like what then we can like expand and become eventually the Mario Odyssey. You know what I mean? Where there's all these layers and different elements that you got going on. Because like as you're going through the game, how many power-ups are there? There's like 5, 6
something like that.
Power-ups,
sounds right.
Like maybe upwards of 7, 8. But like they do recycle that a bit, which is not a bad thing, because like then you're in a new level and you're doing different stuff. But like they do recycle.
New way to use that thing, but you're using some of the same stuff.
But like the punchy one, for example, you use the punchy one quite a few times, which is super fun. Admittedly, using the trigger buttons to.
It's what ARMS should have been.
Yeah, ARMS.
Wow.
There you go, Nintendo. There you go, Nintendo. Just get these guys to make your ARMS 2 game.
That's right.
But I don't know. It just I feel like I'm sounding like, but I didn't really like it. Like I did like it a lot. I don't know. They just felt like there was like just kind of like an extra something there that was missing. That like, I mean, Mario's been around for decades, so that's not fair to totally compare it. But like, it just felt like a beginning blocks thing where it's like, this is a really good foundation. I like what you got going on here. It just needs a little bit more for me. But I like, again, I did have a lot of fun with it. I had the most fun on the challenge levels because I think I'm
legit.
I think I'm pretty solid at platformers. So like all the regular levels were just easy to me. They were just almost too easy. And the challenge ones were, the symbols, those levels.
One of my favorite things about Astrobot, I was watching a YouTube video of a streamer. I think it's one of the guys with long hair and a beard. I can't remember. It might have been Asmongold. It was one of those guys who decided, fine, I'll play this stupid kids game, right?
Sure.
And so I watched actually a surprising amount of it because as he played, he's making fun of it. He's like, oh, this is just a Mario ripoff. This is just like, you could tell he's kind of trolling a little bit too.
Sure.
But he legitimately, as the game goes on, he was like, all right, well, that was pretty cool, I guess. Like you could see him like you were watching his Grinch heart growing 3 sides.
Sure.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like, to me, it's just a joyful game. That doesn't mean it has the gameplay of the year. But that's just like, did I have the most fun with it? Would I pick it out of these 4 that we're looking at? Yes, I would. Like, I think
it's very fun. It's definitely very fun.
But I'm also not mad about the only one that I have a problem with because I spent so much time with it was Dragon's Dogma 2. I would not love to be the number 1 game. The other 3, I'd feel fine with being number 1. So what we could do, just for the sake of time, because we are hitting max time here, I appreciate you guys giving up so much time. We can just do let's each rank them and then give them some points and see where we land and see if we feel good about that. Do you guys cool with that, or do you want to do you want to take a stab? Does one of you want to take a stab at trying to rank?
No, I was going to be the bad guy for a second and be like, now after all that stuff I said about Astrobot, it's not even on my top 10. So, so for whatever that's worth. Yeah.
I mean, if we're gonna, that's the same thing. I don't have Metaphor.
Yeah, or
Dragon's Dogma on my top. Actually, Rebirth is in my top 10, but barely. So like,
Al actually thinks Astrobot is the worst video game ever created.
Yeah.
It's not my genre. Yeah, it's just not my genre. Yeah, I think it's
the heel turn we've all been waiting for.
Fun. You want to talk about Grinch's heart growing? I was playing a game I didn't like this year that I was like, oh, I like this.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
But I'm right there with you.
Which is why I'm not going to fight it being in the top 5. Like it's winning game of the year everywhere. Like am I going to be the asshole who goes no?
But I think it's the same thing. Like Metaphor and Dragon's Dogma 2 are nowhere close to my top 10 best gameplay of the year. So like I'm kind of right there with you, where it's like I can appreciate what they're doing, even if I wouldn't pick them myself. So let's do this. Just to keep it, just so it could be like a surprise of some kind.
Keep it perfectly legal.
Can you guys send it to me? I don't care if it's a Facebook message or a text, either one you prefer. Your order. Okay, and then I'll put them together. So for those of you who are
Facebook message,
but just to me. So then I'll
I'm gonna send you. I'm gonna send you some nudes, Tim. Just hold on a sec.
Well, you already do that. I've got enough of those.
Send a nude.
Oh, you don't want more of them? Okay.
Yeah, I don't need any more of those.
Okay.
What were they again?
You're just ranking 1 through 4 on Metaphor, Astrobot, Rebirth, and.
Oh, like what our ranking is? We're not doing the points.
You just give me your 1 through 4, and then I'll do the points on them. Yeah, you just rank them top to bottom, and I'll do points. All right, so I'm gonna go that. Let's just pause real quick, and then we'll come back with.
Can you bring it up one more time? I'm like, I can't remember 4 games.
Yeah. Oh, it's Metaphor, Astrobot, Final Fantasy 7.
Final Fantasy. That's what I keep.
Dragon's Dogma 2.
Dare you, Co?
You're really getting it tonight, man. I'm sorry.
Metaphor, Astro, Rebirth, Dogma.
Yeah, thank you.
Dan's not getting it tonight. Get out of here.
Yeah. He's just like, we're just piling on. Yeah.
Hey,
your game with all this fluff and broken combat and dumb.
Hey, I said it too.
Stuff and
if it makes anyone feel better, I have 2 of my darlings on this list, and then none of the like Final Fantasy Rebirth is on my top 10. That's it. The rest of them, no. So.
You want to throw another? Let's throw a wrench in the mix. Let's get another Tim jar.
Let's get Black Wukong off and get a Tim game on.
No. Yeah, get Mini Shoot Adventures on there.
I would put it on there. All right.
I'm not even kidding. Just throw it on.
Yeah, I don't have any connection to Black Myth Wukong. So
right, let me see if I can add. Let me see if I can add these up. Let's see here.
Kill it.
Kill it.
Kill the monkey.
Am I doing that right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Got Kyle. What if this comes out as a tie?
I almost hope it does because that's hysterical. I love when that happens. It's hilarious. Hilarious.
Wait, is that right? Okay, yeah. So far, it's a tie. Okay.
Shit.
Uh-oh.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
That's how democracy works, guys.
All right. Okay. Now I'm starting to see how it's going to shape out. Okay. 8 and then 7. Okay, good. It's not a tie.
Let them
it's
fight.
not a tie. I think if we had one other person on the pod, it would have been a tie.
Ooh.
So, okay. All right, we're back. We've tallied up the scores. I'm going to reshare the screen. Here are our final results. It's going to be Final Fantasy VII Rebirth by a hair at the top, followed by Metaphor Fantasio, then Dragon's Dogma 2, then Astrobot as our top gameplay games of the year, based on our voting. Pretty close.
Pretty close.
Look at this. All the insulting Rebirth gets tonight, and how many awards has it's won? This is for you guys.
You're right. We should you're right. We should pull that down to second or third place. Maybe put Astrobot up a couple more.
What happens when we do the scoring?
What? Get Mini Shoot Adventures higher. Get it up there. Get Mini Shoot Adventures.
You know,
I'm not even kidding. You can get Mini Shoot Adventures.
We left it to the numbers, and the numbers won.
Numbers won. That's right. Yeah, I think when you do these kind of ranking lists, you can unintentionally criticize something harshly when you're just trying to get something that you really like above it. That's usually how it ends up going. And it's like, well, I actually don't dislike it that much. I just didn't want it to be higher than my thing that I liked. That's usually how it goes. Which is, I understand that's happened in years past too. That's what happened in 2016 when I was fighting so hard for Uncharted 4. And
what did it lose against?
Dragon's Dogma. No, Dark Souls 3.
Shut up. That's so insane.
I know.
Where?
I know.
Who left you alone? That's insane.
So our top 10 is here. If you've stuck with us, thanks so much for still being here. But our top 10 is at number 10, we have Helldivers 2. Number 9 is Stellar Blade. Then 8 is Prince of Persia. 7 is Black Myth Wukong. 6 is Dragon Age. 5 is Like a Dragon. 4 is Astrobot. 3 is Dragon's Dogma 2. A lot of dragons on this list. 2 is Metaphor. And number 1 is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, winning both of our ranked lists this week. That just goes to show you that when you have enough, in my opinion, a game is going to win if it's in the top selection of enough people. It doesn't have to be everyone's number 1, but it was up high enough. Do you know what I'm saying? So it was Dan's number 1, but then it was up high enough. Like for me, it's my second. Of those 4, it was my second favorite. Like easily.
Well, there you go.
Way above Metaphor and Dragon's Dogma. Of those 4 that we were voting on, you know. So yeah, that's the way the cookie crumbles. But that's true. Listen, those games are all so different. It's so weird to rank these, but that's what makes it fun because it's weird.
It's very weird. It's very weird.
It's so weird. But next week will be really, I think, just what's the word, Dan? Culmination. Is that the word?
Culmination.
Of all the things you've heard so far about our favorite stories, our favorite visuals, our favorite gameplay. So it's probably not going to be a ton of surprises. I think it's going to be pretty similar to a combination of the things we've traveled through, but it really helps kind of fine tune where that ends up landing.
Final Fantasy again, it seems like. So.
We might be.
Astrobot's going to win Game of the Year.
I show up next week and we're like, no, it doesn't deserve to be in the 10. Like,
you know what? Elden Ring, Erdtree, number 1.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll be fun. We'll wrap it up with that. We'll also spend a little time. My goal is to do 2 things. One is we're going to do our overall ranking, of course, but I want to spend a little time celebrating the music of the year. So we'll be bringing in.
I love this.
Favorite songs.
This
so
is my favorite segment that we do.
Yeah, we'll just do a screen share and I'll just hit play on some Spotify. So maybe actually throughout this week, you guys, we could put together Spotify / YouTube playlists.
Let's shoot them in the chat somewhere. Yeah. I actually have a short list of the games, but I need to get the songs. Yeah. So
we'll do that. But thank you all for sticking with us. Thanks for hanging out. It's so fun to revisit what was a really great, really unique, kind of strange year of gaming. It didn't have the Elden Ring or the Zelda or whatever. It was just different kind of a year. It was and I really enjoyed my year of gaming, and of course the old games too. But thank you all for being here. Thanks for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.